We are here again.
Yes. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. I think that's the nicest thing I've heard all day today.
There you go. This is the Border Poll Journal for the 24th of July.
No, the 14th.
Oh, why is it? You're right. My eyesight is failing me. I thought it said 24 in the corner there. I'm pushing summer too quickly.
I know you're on the other side of the country from me, but I didn't know there was that big a date line.
Yeah, well, here we are in beautiful downtown Grand Bend.
And here we are out in the dry West Coast.
Well, at least it's dry. We had it come some couple of days of torrential rain.
Well, at this point, I think we'd be very happy to get that. I think they said something like 350 forest fires burning in the province somewhere.
Wow, that's a lot of forest fires.
Mm.
And how many did Smokey find were from campfires?
Uh, I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but the most recent ones were from nature causes, not human intervention. But
Okay. I know
anyway,
that they were investigating some arson in various places.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I don't understand that mindset. Mind you, I don't understand criminal mindset at the best of times. So
Well,
investigate what they want.
well, today's program, as you know from our pre-production discussion, we're going to focus on crime and immigration. After all, we are border poll, and some other issues. But the one that, for those people who think that nothing happens in Canada, we have a lot of issues involving the criminal justice system kind of not working.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
The story of suspect accused of attempted murder in a vicious knife attack in Toronto was released on the street shortly after failing to show up for multiple bail hearings for numerous robbery-related charges. I'm going to read you this report because this is a very current, and I don't think it's a isolated incident because we can go through a number of cases. But this is in Toronto, the largest city in Canada, where there's a lot of folks sleeping on the street. There's an awful lot of issues of mental illness and poverty and so on,
Yeah.
which has essentially grown exponentially over the last couple of years. And there doesn't appear to be any real efforts to deal with it. But I digress for the moment. So I'm just going to go over this particular case, and then we can chat about it. And it's on July the 6th, the video captured by the TTC, which is the Toronto Transit System, went viral, allegedly depicting a fellow by the name of Moses Lewin and another passenger engaged in a dispute before Lewin stabbed and chased his victim with a knife before fleeing the scene at one of the subway stations called Eglinton Station. However, this incident is far from Lewin's first run-in with the law, as records show that his criminal activities ramped up in severity over the past year and a half. This person has been charged multiple times for stealing motor vehicles, break and enter, and failing to show up for bail hearings on multiple occasions. According to documents that were obtained by the Canadian TV news people, CTV, this fellow was charged in April 22 for stealing a car, possessing break-in instruments, and possessing 10 license plates. And remind me about the license plates thing later, because there's another issue there I was going to bring up. He was released on bail for $500, which is a joke, but failed to appear on his scheduled court appearance, provoking the court to issue a bench warrant on April 26, 2022. A few months later, in June 2022, he was charged in Milton, Ontario, again for theft of a car, motor vehicle, breaking and entering, dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, flight from a police officer, and failure to comply with a release order. So this guy's, 24 karat gold. Despite him having an outstanding bench warrant for his arrest, get this, the court decided to hold him for bail at the princely sum of $200, which prompted his quick release from prison. In November 2022, he was caught offending again. I like the term that they're using in the press, caught offending, being charged with damaging windows at the Scarborough Town Center, possessing break-in instruments, and carrying an 8-inch fishing knife as a weapon. Clearly, he's not a fisher person. He was released again and failed to show up January 11, 2023 for his court appearance because he just doesn't do that sort of stuff. On the day of his alleged murder attempt on the subway, a bench warrant was issued for his arrest by the same Milton court for his June 2022 break-in. Now, here's interesting. From January 2023 back to June 2022, what was the court doing in Milton? Apparently, he never showed up, so they gave him 6 months. Maybe he'll wander in off the street. Who knows? Critics claim that criminals like this guy being released on bail to re-offend has become the norm in Canada and not the exception. The Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, has promised to deny bail to repeat violent offenders if elected prime minister and to mitigate the crime issue in Canada's big cities. He says, quote, if someone has committed 7 or 8 repeat violent offenses and then is newly arrested on a new violent charge, then it's clear that they are a danger to society and should be kept behind bars until the trial is over and their sentence is complete, said Poilievre in a press conference in May. Now, this one gets me, but he's quoted, if they've committed 7 or 8 repeat violent offenses, like, what's the magic number here? 7 or 8, 1 or 2, like just the verbiage itself suggests to me that, how serious are you on this? What?
It goes back to some of the issues we've talked about before, and it seems to be a bit of a issue in Canada where we have to have numbers assigned to everything. In the immigration legislation, right? I mean, if you smuggled 9 people, you weren't a human smuggler. But if you did 10, then they could go after you. Like, what difference does one person make? Well, I shouldn't say that. One person smuggled versus 9 people smuggled versus 100 people smuggled is a crime, and it should be addressed. A number shouldn't matter. Now, whether it's a criminal offense where there has to be a magic number of 8 or 9 serious offenses, or whether it's just one, becomes kind of a moot point, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, well, the whole issue with the trafficking and smuggling, if you'll remember, some decades ago, they decided that smuggling and trafficking are 2 different things, even though they both end up, getting the job done for the syndicates who are moving the people. But I digress for a second. Anyway, just to finish up on this case, that puts us then on the track of what we're going to talk about today, which is the crime issue in Canada, well, North America in general, because we'll have some American cases that have come up too. But the report concludes by saying that Canada's most high-profile criminal cases, like the Saskatchewan mass murder in September 22, were committed by someone who was known to the criminal justice system for past violence. So, the problem is that we've got, I call them cowards in the court system, who are afraid to put these people where they're supposed to be. Okay, if they're violent reoffenders, why are you putting them at $200 bail? Are you kidding me?
Wow.
This is the price of a lunch for a bunch of elites in downtown Ottawa, and this guy and many like him are basically given free range chicken status. Yeah, you can go and do whatever you want because we'll do a lot of squawking, but you still get to go out there and do whatever you want. This is the absurdity of this is beyond
Well, it is, but I also kind of wonder whether the part and parcel of this is that they increase in crime and in virtually all levels. Although if you read statistics, they're saying that the crime levels are going down. We have a limited number of spaces, right? We're not building new jails, nor do we want to seem to build new jails to incarcerate people. So what becomes the issue is that you kind of go along the line of, well, this will keep going and this will keep going, and hopefully nothing very major, nothing very serious is going to happen on my watch. And they keep passing the buck.
Okay, so the question is, what motivates these people to do that? I mean, why would a judge grant bail for $200 to a multiple offender who has aggravated assault cases, causing bodily harm, failure to? I mean, this character is a poster child for what is wrong with the system.
Well, that's true.
What judge thought that $200 is the price for letting this creep back out on the street?
I think part of that goes to the fact that $200 used to be an awful lot of money. And you go to the ATM now and you don't get $5 and $10 bills, you get 50s and hundreds, right? I mean, it's a meaningless concept, and a deterrence factor of anything monetary is a joke. $200, right? You're right. I mean, that's a lunch. You can go out and for two people very quickly run up a tab for $100, and it's not even at a high-end restaurant anymore, right? I mean, I went out for dinner the other night, $16 for me, right?
What I trying to get my head around is, what would this judge do if the person he or she let out the door for $200 came around and attacked them, broke into their house, stole their car? You see, there seems to be some sort of thought process that snaps off along the way with these people. They are not in the least bit concerned for their safety, for their well-being, their families' well. I mean, it's like, this not going to happen to me, and if it happens to somebody else, I mean, I'm trying to come to grips with where are they coming from?
Well, I think you've hit the nail right on the head there, Tom, with and anecdotally, this goes back many, many years when there used to be a justice in Vancouver who routinely threw out assault peace officer charges, just threw them out willy-nilly. It's you should expect that, because that's part of what you're getting paid for. And finally, after many, many of these cases were tossed out, somebody said, well, Judge, why don't you come down and visit with us on Friday night, which just happens to be a full moon, and it happens to be part and parcel of the end of the month when all the welfare payments are being paid. And this judge thought, oh, yeah, that'll be kind of a lark. I'd like to go out and see what happens. And downtown Vancouver, he went out for a ride along, and sure enough, there was a big dust up, and the judge stood by the car and just watched what was going on. Somebody approached the judge, wound up with a big fist, and he's, I'm not a policeman, I'm a judge. And the comment was, I really don't care who you are. Whack, right in the nose, broke his nose, put him down. And it turned out eventually, over the next 6 months or 7 months until the lesson wore off, assault PO was a pretty significant charge, and the criminals were actually getting jail time, lenient as it might be, but they were getting jail time because this guy had his nose broken. And you hit the nail right on the head when you said, these guys, they live in the Hollywood North, or the Rodeo Drive, or the whatever you want to call it, and the likelihood of that particular crime or series of crimes happening to them is remote.
Yes.
Ergo, they don't see it.
You live in a
It's
bubble,
not a problem.
security bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know that coincidentally with this report out of Toronto, which is just it makes you nauseous just to
Well,
read it. But at the same time, again, focusing on what is wrong with the leadership, like what is in their heads. In Hamilton, the Hamilton Police Association has come out and condemned the Hamilton Center New Democrat Party MPP Sarah Jama Jama. This is a for people who don't know who the NDP is, the far left, if you like, party in Canada that is essentially the antithesis of anything that would be conservative. But nevertheless, the this NDP member of provincial parliament for the province of Ontario decided that she was going to attend a No Pride in Policing Coalition march that basically focuses on abolishing law enforcement. In a statement to True North, which is a Canadian independent media outfit, the HPA, Hamilton Police Association spokesman Jamie Bannon said, and I quote, "Every Ontario family deserves to feel safe in their homes and their communities. And they've made it loud and clear that they support and want more investment in police and public safety," unquote. The union was very concerned that this MPP was talking about abolishing police. She doesn't like police, and it's not only is that sort of talk irresponsible and dangerous, it's, in my opinion, stupid. Okay, who wants to live in a world of police have been abolished, and what have we come to expect from this MP and her dangerous rhetoric? So this woman goes out and is basically talking about abolitionist, anti-fascist pride march that was held back in June 25th in Toronto, and demanded the abolishment of police and prisons, but also other radical policies. Okay, this group has 25 demands. That you listen to this laundry list of crazy stuff. Okay, they want to include the legalization of prostitution, allowing drug users to be able to donate blood, supporting safe supply and drug injection sites, protecting drag shows for kids, 20-hour minimum wage, and make Toronto a real sanctuary city, which I'm not sure what is it now, fake sanctuary city. The demand also calls for the reintroduction of masks. We should all wear masks. And these protesters said that masks should be mandatory, even if you're outdoors. I mean, you're going, okay, now I'm really lost on this one. Further, the group called for marchers to support the Palestinian struggle against Israel and apartheid and settle and colonizing and so on and so forth. I mean, these guys really are on the fringe. But this particular MP's decision to attend the anti-police, anti-Israeli rally was also condemned by Jewish groups in Canada, and they accused her of being radical in the truest sense of the word rather. So to quote the Jewish community represented by B'nai B'rith in Canada, quote, "Sarah Jama is a radical who continues to take positions that are contrary to the aims of her party." The NDP has aims, apparently, and the legislature as a whole, and the sanctity and security of her constituents. She continues to unnecessarily conflate domestic issues with those of Israel-Palestine, unquote. Now, the Solicitor General for Ontario said that he was showing, or she was showing rather, the far left's true colors, and that they condemned it in the most strongest terms, that calls to defund it, abolish the police, and their continued embrace of rampant anti-Semitism. And there's an interesting link here between this crowd, the anti-Semites, and abolish the police. I mean, there seems to be some kind of a link between these groups. Anyhow, it's clear that this business of abolishing the police and talking about racism and colonial police violence and right-wing fascists attacking drag queens and trans and queer and black and indigenous, it's like some sort of epidemic on the streets of people being attacked. And I'm not familiar with any of those cases, but I am familiar with a lot of these people who are shoving innocent folks into the oncoming subway cars and slashing tires and defacing monuments, and apparently all that stuff is, for a good cause. Well, I think we are in serious trouble when a place like Canada, which really had no real history of this kind of craziness, is now in full bloom. I mean, this is.
Well, I guess to me, the answer very simply to the people that want to abolish the police is if you get involved in an accident, or your loved ones are attacked, or your house is broken into, or you happen to be downtown and get involved in a riot, don't expect the police to help you. Don't call the police, right? That's that's fine. You don't think they should be there, then deal with the consequences of that. You know, well, remove the 911 dial button from your phone. You can't have it both ways. Either you do something and abide by and I guess it goes back a little bit to what you were talking about before with our justice system in Canada. And I don't think we have a justice system in Canada. We have a criminal system. We have a system for the criminals, by the criminals, and of the criminals.
If you live in Winnipeg, the same bunch that we're talking about, who don't seem to like to have any police anywhere, they're now warning the public to be extra vigilant as a high-risk sex offender who has preyed on children, especially girls, is being released back into the public after completing a short prison term. I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but this guy was released by correctional services on July 12th, despite the fact he poses a risk to children. He'd been serving a sentence of 6.5 months, breaching the conditions of his own recognizance order. Another guy who's told, you're supposed to do what the courts have told you, and who cares? Okay, so the Winnipeg police, in their wisdom, go on Twitter, and they say, "This is a community notification." The fellow's name was released from the Headingley Correctional Center on July 12th. Has a history of violent sexual offenses. This guy is still considered high risk to reoffend. All children are at risk, particularly females. So the Winnipeg police, for whatever reason, think, okay, we'll put this out on Twitter, it solves the problem. No. Now, I'm not blaming the police for the release of this guy, but it shows how Mickey Mouse this is getting. Well, we'll just put it out on Twitter. This guy, look out for him because he shouldn't be out on the street. Yeah. Okay. So what? You're going to lock up your kids now in Winnipeg if you have young daughters who don't go out on the street because this joker is running around loose, because the correctional services and the Manitoba justice system. I'll just release him. Maybe he won't be such a problem when he's out with the regular folks.
Well, I think part of that goes to dare I say it, wokeism. Right? If the police didn't put out something or didn't do something, and something drastic happened, then they're going to be the ones that are first going to be land-based. Not the guy that committed the offense, not the system that gave him 6 months. Well, that's like a $200 fine, right? Or $200 bail.
Again, the same joke. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't fault the police for going to a public. People all have Twitter accounts. People all have Facebook accounts. People all have, because that's where we get our updates from. I don't know. Anyway, so they did something because maybe that's all they could do. What is in this case? What is the Winnipeg police? Are they going to? They don't have the resources to follow this guy around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They don't.
Oh, yeah, but they do CYA on this.
Okay. Oh, absolutely.
They are quoted as putting out a press release, and I'll quote the press release that says, or rather, the spokesperson for the Winnipeg Police Service says that they're going to be monitoring the situation. And quote, "We have a dedicated high-risk sex offender unit called the Manitoba Integrated High-Risk Sex Offender Unit, the MIHRSOU, which monitors such offenders and enforces court orders. The only thing is that this particular guy who has a problem of continual recidivism has a criminal record that includes sexual assault, sexual interference, assault with a deadly weapon, and for dangerous purposes. He's used threats, drugs, and other inducements to lure his underage victims. He's already bound by 3 court orders that limit his contact with children under 16, his employment and volunteer opportunities, access to alcohol, drugs, and his possession of weapons. He doesn't give a rat's behind about what the court order says. He's also defied by a daily curfew, which will be in regular contact with his probation officer. Yeah. The unit also said that while this individual participated in some treatment programs while in custody, he's still considered a high risk to reoffend. So where are the adults in that room at correctional services or in the court system? Okay.
Well,
the public is to exercise caution and immediately report any suspicious activity involving him. Well, excuse me, but the public aren't police officers. Public aren't the court system. The public should be able to go about their business without having to worry about some nut job like this wandering around loose. I'm sorry, but there's something, it just
there's an expectation, and I guess that goes back to yesteryear. We have an expectation that we're going to live in a society that people follow the rules, and unfortunately, the rules are getting so confused or so unenforceable that what do they want to do? Should we just get up in the morning and have our morning coffee and make sure that the front and the back doors are locked and draw the drapes so we don't see anybody and nobody can see into us? Or do we want to become that kind of a society? And my answer is no. And I kind of wonder at some point, this particular individual in Manitoba, what's going to happen if somebody decides to take the law into their own hands? And, if he was attacking my 6-year-old daughter and I killed him, they're going to be in dire straits. They're going to have the book thrown at them because they're being vigilante, which is not acceptable. But then neither is child molestation or serious assaults or anything else along that line. So we have a court system that is very, very messed up, and I don't think it is particularly germane to this country. I think in a lot of countries, the path of least resistance is often taken.
Yeah, but I still don't understand the motivation.
Well, I think it's just the fact. I hope nothing serious happens on my watch, and eventually it's going to happen. And anyway, you had said something about going back to the 10 license plates.
Oh yeah, well, part of that is the whole proliferation of false and fraudulent license plates that are a real bane here in this province, and I think some other jurisdictions. But this one, they actually tried to solve the problem some couple of years ago, coming out with a new set of license plates, and then they found out they couldn't read the license plates at night because of the technology that they use on the new license plates. You couldn't read these plates in the dark, so they stopped making upgraded license. In the meantime, almost 2 years has passed now, and we still have all sorts of fraud with people using stolen license plates. That if you talk to the police or listen to them on their patrols, they'll pull over a car that's a 92 Buick, which actually has plates for a 2008 Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
And the proliferation of bogus plates and vehicles that are unregistered for insurance, it's totally, nobody cares, so again, it's all part of the justice system, and the bureaucracy seems to not give any whit's regard to the little things. Okay.
Wow, yeah.
And how incompetent are you when you can't even put out license plates? that you can have some degree of confidence in the plate that's or the marker that's on that vehicle really belongs to the person you're talking to, or is really attached to the vehicle that's in question. And so this might seem like some bureaucratic, issue for our viewers or readers, or our listeners rather. But if you can't do that, how are we expecting you to deal with serious criminals who
Well,
are doing their utmost to screw up society? I mean, we really have a problem here, and
we do. And,
it's
out
very
here in
frustrating.
particular, we used to have the validation stickers that went on plates so that everybody knew that you had paid your insurance fees and your registration was up to date and blah, 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 blah. Not that that plate belonged to that particular car. It's kind of a separate issue. But one of the police services out here decided, because there was a rash of break-ins to insurance companies where they were stealing the little decals when they caught the individual, they charged them with theft over, because it costs on average maybe $1,000 to more, depending on your driving record, to get that little sticker to put on your plate. And Crown prosecutors out here wouldn't go with that, because somebody in their right mind, or alleged right mind, went out and asked, how much does it actually cost to produce this little piece of paper? And it was 25 cents or 30 cents per decal. So you can't charge them with theft over, because it's only worth 30 cents.
But the point of the thing is that if you don't have any faith in your system, whether it's as mundane as the decals on your marker or your license plate, then how do you expect to have any faith in the machinery of law enforcement and justice? If
Well,
you
that's
can't
true.
deal with the little things, how
And,
is the public expected to deal with the big things?
well, like
And that's
I mentioned
simple.
before, like other federal programs you're starting to get into with immigration, foreign affairs,
It's global affairs.
intelligence gathering. I mean, if you can't do simple things, how are you going to be expected to do the
Well,
major
I think we're coming to part of this discussion is a realization that by not being able to deal with the simple things, which is probably because we have people who can't deal with simple things, are then tasked with doing complicated things. We're using the things here and well, no wonder we're in trouble.
things?
There are no adults in the room. There are no learned, skilled, educated people in the room. We seem to have drilled down to the very bottom of the heap of humanity to run stuff, and they can't run simple things. Okay, and that's a big problem here, because I don't know how you turn this around. By the way, we want to get for something minutes left. One of the big news items for us this couple of days now is the war in Ukraine drags on. And yesterday, a Ukrainian general was quoted as said that the Americans have delivered a shipment of cluster bombs to them because while they haven't used them, it will radically change things on the battlefield, according to the Ukrainian general. The report from the wire service, let me just see where it's from antiwar.com. Well, okay, but be that as it may, the Biden administration announced last week it was sending Ukrainian cluster munitions, sending the Ukraine rather cluster munitions in the form of 155 millimeter artillery shells as part of another $800 million package of aid. They're being provided by Biden out of their own supplies directly from the U.S. military stockpiles. Now, we all know about the cluster bombs, which are they scatter small bombs all over the place when they explode, making especially hazardous for civilians. And what happens for years and decades afterwards, a lot of the stuff doesn't go off, and it's it indiscriminately kills people or maims people
Yeah.
years after the war is over or the conflict is over, because you can't find them. They're made of plastic. You can't even go after them with bomb detection devices
Well, it's
because
kind of
they're
like the mine issue. Yeah.
yeah, and because of their indiscriminate nature, the cluster bombs have been banned in over 100 countries. But get this, the US, Ukraine, and Russia are not signatories to the treaty known as the Convention on Cluster Munitions. And the Americans have defended arming Kiev with these weapons, saying that Ukraine and US are running out of conventional artillery. So we're just going to have to use this because, according to the State Secretary Anthony Blinken, Ukraine would be defenseless without cluster bombs. The administration's rhetoric on cluster munitions, of course, has radically changed because back in February of 2022, when they were asked about the use of the cluster bombs in Ukraine by the Russians, they said it would be a potential war crime. Interesting, when someone else throws it, it's a war crime. When they throw it into the field, it's not a war crime.
Right. This goes exactly what we've been talking about with adults in the room and
that's right.
proliferation. If we just had one simple nuclear preemptive strike, it would solve issues. Well, no, it wouldn't.
Yeah. Well,
and you know darn well that if the Ukraine fires one cluster bomb, it's going to come back in aces, and then where do you end up?
Well, you know, the whole thing with NATO and Ukraine now is really getting to be quite toxic across the board on the whole question of who's telling lies and who's not. You know, when the United States loses their mind because some country like China or Russia might put something into Cuba, you know, base it. Whoa, you can't do that because that's tantamount to attack on the U.S. But when the U.S. decides to go into a country that butts right up against its adversary, that's okay. And I don't know where these people get off talking about tactical nuclear weapons, because there's no such thing. You do that, we're all going to fry, because there's this strange phenomena going on in the States that somehow they aren't going to have any of this trouble if they start blowing up other people. Like, you know, as I said many times before, this isn't some ragtag outfit running around the desert in their sandals. You're talking about a nuclear powered adversary who is not going to sit around and have their country attacked.
Yes.
Anyway, we don't have much time, but hope people are thinking about this, and they better write to their MPs and their congressmen and their senators and say, stop this insanity before some moron really screws it up. And that's
yes. I guess this is the plea for the adults in the room to please stand up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
that's our plea.
Please, yes.
Good to see you, Bob.
Good to see you too. And I'm sure we'll probably be in touch again
next week. Take care.
Yes, indeed. Have fun.
We'll try. Bye now.